The Harkle Show, the Harkle Show. Buy your tickets, away we go. The circus is exhausted, but it's in town. They miss me, so smile for the camera, don't kiss me. I'm the star of this show, and he's the clown. Oh Henry, the Harkle Show, the Harkle Show. When they go high, we go low. We want our privacy and luxuries they can't afford. I got diamonds to buy, I've got a tear in my eye, but this spectacle brings us the dough. So roll up, baby, to the Harkle Show. Welcome to the broadcast, my dears. You know, all these weeks I've been worrying about how bunched up some of my blazers and tops look to you when I'm sitting here, because things do get creased, and you know, I'm right there in front of you, and I think, oh, if I was watching, I think it looks a bit sloppy, but it seems and it appears that it's the fashion, and it's rather in vogue, if the Duchess of Sussex is arbiter of taste, isn't it? Creases and bunches are all in fashion, so my garb today is inspired by the Duchess, and I'm just going to let all those creases and rings speak for themselves, my dear. Oh my, we have so much to unpack today, and I've got to tell you, it is quite a variety of the farcical, the stupid, and some very, very serious stuff that has emerged this afternoon. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to weave this all together, but I'm going to give it my best shot, my dears. And what I found very interesting, I've got to say, and rather juicy and rather worthy of sipping the tea, was the sighting of the Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie over the past couple of days. They were seen at a public house called the Princess Royal, very apt, and they were cavorting with the likes of James Blunt and his wife, Sophia, and a scattering and a smattering of celebrities. And one of those celebrities was Mr. Piers Morgan, and it was very affectionate. It was kissy kissy, it was huggy huggy, it was lovey dovey. And the reason, of course, that's surprising is because he is the Arche-Nemisis of the Sussexes, isn't he? He is the Arche-Nemesis. But they were all having a fabulous time, enjoying, very cheeky, and it's rather encouraging, isn't it? Not that I really feel that any royal should be so blatantly serenading celebrities, but I have to come to terms with the fact that they all do it. Every single one of them, from the king to the queen, all the way down, and it has been done in the past. Not so much by the late Queen Elizabeth, of course, but Princess Margaret, who surrounded herself with various bohemians and actors and actresses, and many have, I'm sure, and even in the past, going back further than that, they always have. It's just that social media was different, and the likes of Prince Andrew, for example, in the 90s, when he was guiding the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell, Kevin Spacey around the throne room at Buckingham Palace and letting them take their seat. You know, these people didn't realise that in a few years' time, photographs and images would be shared and proliferated all over social media. So times have completely changed, and I've got to get to grips with that. I digress. They were at the Princess Royal, and here is Eugenie in her blue smock and black boots and a camel coat. And I have to say, compared to previous photographs of Eugenie, she looks quite good in this photograph. I like the sort of foxy nature of those boots, because she's been looking so frumpy at times, especially, and she ditched the headband. She took my advice. Headband gone, that cummerbund affair, and it's rather nice just in a simple knot there, isn't it? Was it a bun thing going on? Got a bun in the oven and a bun on her head. But usually, arrange your coat and fix your appearance before you leave the pub. You are a princess. You don't need to be, you're not in some romantic comedy. You're not dashing around the streets of New York in wonder. You don't need to be dashing around. You put it before you leave the establishment, my dear. And somebody said to me in the comments the other day, what's going on with Eugenie's hemlines? Because she was wearing a rather unflattering dress, and then her coat, the same coat, was a couple of inches above the hemline. And you are absolutely right, my dear, because you asked my opinion. And yes, in my opinion and the opinion of anybody in the know, first of all, your hemlines, if you're going to wear a coat over a dress or a skirt, they shouldn't be fighting for the same space. No, they shouldn't. The coat should cover the skirt or the hemline generously enough so that there's no competition between the two lines, or you take it up shorter. You take it up noticeably shorter so that there is a distinct difference, and perhaps the coat would be thigh length or that sort of thing. But no, that was a faux pas, so at least she sorted it out on this occasion. And Princess Beatrice in her navy blue was acceptable, and of course James and Sophia Blunt have been friends with many members of the royal family for a long time. They attended the Sussex nuptials, yes they did, so they're cavorting with Piers Morgan as well. And they attended the Brooksbank wedding. So it was hijinks all around, and we shall wait with bated breath to see what Mr. Morgan was able to squirrel away into his little black book of mischief and in-the-know revelations, won't we? Now, I'm sure the princesses didn't knock back too much of those magnums of red wine. However, we must turn, of course, to the appearances of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex over the past day. And of course, after all these months with the heads firmly below the parapet, well, it's less than a fortnight to go until the coronation. So of course, like Jack in the Box, they pop up with their tricks. And this was at some sort of sporting match at the Crypto.com arena. Are all these arenas, including here in the Kingdom, coming to? They all have the name of their sponsors, don't they? Splashed with vulgarity along them. The Crypto.com arena of Los Angeles. And they were in the pink. Meghan was in the pink. She's been wearing a lot of pale pink lately. She's just flushed with the excitement of the young ingenue. Now, I will say, in fairness, I think she looks fabulous at the moment. Yes, I do. I think she looks great. I didn't really love the very ironed hair we saw the day before, but we'll speak about that in a moment. Although, as I say, I don't really care for the really crumpled look of the clothes. I'm sure the clothes themselves are very nice if you really like to wear suit jackets and shorts. I don't think it's especially cricket, but if that's what you like, and fair enough, if you want to show your legs, that's fine. But it still looks like a crumpled heap of rags that's been chucked upon her, and it's like someone's done the laundry but left the ironing, isn't it? Left the ironing to mother, and they can't be bothered to do it. They were like excitable teenagers, weren't they? Excitable. Harry, little puppy dog next to Meghan, and they were captured on kiss cam. He just reminds me of a little Labrador puppy that needs his approval, my dear. And she reminds me of Barbara Woodhouse, who was an extremely legendary dog trainer and mistress of note, and she would say, "Walkies, walkies." Yes, my dear. And they put on a very happy show, didn't they? A very happy show. Smiles were almost too happy. And isn't it interesting? Harry was so eager to demonstrate affection because apparently the crowds were egging them on. Come on, smooch, smooch, smooch. And Meghan giggles, and then the arm goes up, doesn't it? Very, very quick, natural reaction there to keep that little smooch at bay. And Harry grimaces, and I'm afraid that's what the newspapers have latched onto, my dear. Shouldn't be touching her. And that arm that we are so familiar with seeing, soothing Harry, soothing him, now restrains, and keeps the boy at bay, keeps the puppy down. And if this is their arrangement, I've got to tell you, it is not unusual to find in men, especially those who have a sort of bent to try and prove their alpha qualities and masculinity, because of course genuinely alpha, totally masculine men have nothing to prove, so you don't see them puffing up, you don't see them todgering. But those that wish to transcend from a Henry to a William, shall we say, many of them behind the scenes and behind that puffed up presentation yearn for the discipline of a woman, So they want that bossy britches, especially if they weren't especially well disciplined by a woman in their childhood. Although personally I find public displays of affection vulgar, and so I might have done the same if I was in the Duchess's shoes, heaven forbid. But I would most likely have done the same, so I'm not blaming her for restricting the boy. But I will say, I did look back on the time when Michelle and Barack Obama found themselves in the same situation, and I found that more heartwarming to look at and a little bit less cringeworthy. I mean, whoever it is, I don't like to see, but I think they did it more naturally. The effect was more natural, and it seemed to be more mutually enjoyed. But one can read a bit too much into these things, can't they? I'm sure it was just a very candid moment for the Harkles and a nice moment, but one can't help but look at the quick reactions and the little exchanges between them and the grimace and read into it. Perhaps a bit too much, but I much more enjoyed the kiss between Michelle and Barack. To me, that was more charming. Princess Catherine paid a visit to a baby bag close to Adelaide, so not too far from home, and she appeared in a Reese blazer in beige. I'm not a fan of Reese, I've got to tell you, but of course Catherine carries it off with aplomb. Navy trousers and a white t-shirt. Very simple, very chic, and she learned about the crucial work that the organisation carries out to support families in need in the area. And she sorted through donations and packed referrals and brought much needed attention to the cause. Wonderful. And of course, Meghan Sussex got the world talking when she made a surprise appearance via video link at a TED Talk, introducing her photographer friend, Miss Harriman. The Duchess of Sussex was kind enough to introduce me onto the stage. Oh, how generous she is to give her time. For my TED, thank you for the support, Meghan. And I suppose I can't blame whoever provided those graphics because barely anybody understands the protocol, but you don't need to write Meghan, then the Duchess of Sussex. You choose one of Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, or the Duchess of Sussex. You can't have Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. It's unnecessary and extraneous. So, or if you wanted to contract it, then Meghan Sussex, as I often use, is absolutely fine. But honestly, I see no justification for her continuing to use her Duchess title. So what would be wrong with Meghan Mountbatten Windsor? Or she can use her maiden name, return to that. Many people do. Oh, but then she's out of favour with the family there, isn't she? Anyway, Ragland. Go back to Ragland, my dear. If you don't want to go all the way back to being Rachel Ragland, fine. But Meg Ragland, Meg Rags, Meg Rag. That would be wonderful. Meg Rags. Yes, let's just call her Rags. Rags. Rags to riches. There we are, my dear. There's the name of your next tome. And her hair appeared very sleek and very ironed out, wasn't it? Very ironed, very straightened. And it appeared to have a sort of lighter tinge than we saw over the last 24 hours. So perhaps she's been playing about and experimenting, and there's nothing wrong with that. But now for a few moments we must turn to something that is less frivolous and really quite serious, in my opinion. And that is the revelations today that came out via Harry. And everything that I'm about to discuss is what has been reported in the press. So for legal reasons, I make that clear. Any allegations with regards to Harry and newspapers are his allegations I'm talking about. I am not repeating them or offering them as my allegations. This is all allegedly. Harry has revealed that William was paid a very large sum by Rupert Murdoch's firm over phone hacking. The details of this settlement have been revealed in legal documents submitted by Harry. And remember, this hacking claim was against the publisher News Group newspapers, the owners of The Sun and the News of the World. And the High Court was told that this was settled and a payment received by Prince William in 2020, even though these claims date back a very long time. He's using this information as part of his legal battle. Now, I have got to tell you here that before I go on to criticise, if it emerges or if it happens to be that Henry approached William and asked for his permission to reveal this information, or the royal family, then I will happily retract my criticism. However, if he has not had the okay from the royal family and other members, and William in particular, then I'm afraid I think this is an outrageous breach of privacy and a brotherly betrayal, if this is information that William did not want imparted. Not that there's anything he needs to hide or feel guilty for at all. He and his family were hacked, and their voicemails were hacked, and there deserved to be comeuppance for that. And it's not as if Prince William is grasping for money. He doesn't really need the shekels, my dear. But it's a breach of privacy. Harry has told the court that his attempts to seek apology from Murdoch's company were carried out with the late Queen's approval. And I do find this a little bit rum, because the late Queen Elizabeth is not here to defend herself. Not that she would stoop and pass comment on the situation anyway, but she isn't here, is she? And again, it is a case of timing, isn't it? With less than a fortnight to go before his father's coronation. This is what's hitting the headlines. Harry claims this secret deal was struck between the royal family and senior executives at Rupert Murdoch's company before 2012. And as part of this supposed deal, the princes would delay legal proceedings against the newspaper group in return for receiving an apology at a later date. And then he goes on to say, in another, what I perceive as betrayal, he said this was done after the family was scarred by the Tampon Gate affair, if you'll recall, when the Sun detailed a phone call between the now King and Queen. And the filings state, this is from Harry's lawyers, the reason for this was to avoid a situation where a member of the royal family would have to sit in the witness box and reveal the details of the private and highly sensitive voicemails that had been intercepted by News of the World reporter Clive Goodman. The institution was incredibly nervous, Harry tells us, about this, and wanted to avoid at all costs the sort of reputational damage that it had suffered in 1993 when The Sun and another tabloid had unlawfully obtained and published details of an intimate telephone conversation that took place between my father and stepmother, he didn't put the word wicked in this time, wicked stepmother, in 1989 while he was still married to my mother. Really? Have you really been given permission by your family to drag this out onto the scene again? Harry says News UK failed to uphold its side of this secret agreement when he sought this apology in 2017. So I'm not quite sure why it was brought up again in 2017, but he claims there were meetings with executives, for example Rebecca Brooks, that ended up going nowhere. So he's been pursuing this over the last few years, and as a result that was when he decided to launch legal proceedings, and alleges that the media targeted him with widespread illegal activity for much of his life, including hacking and illegally obtaining information. And I've got to tell you, for that, I don't doubt. I actually don't doubt. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I don't doubt it. Anyway, newsgroup newspapers insisted that there is no secret agreement. And my objection, you see, is the further tarring and feathering of the royal family and members of that institution. And it's not always what you say, it's the way that you say it. And it's this intimating by this secret agreement that something clandestine was going on, when really the royal family are entitled to private interactions, private goings on, just because they are in a role that requires an element of transparency when it comes to things like the sovereign grant, when it comes to funding, when it comes to their engagements and their role. Are they fulfilling their duties? Yes, absolutely fine. But they are still entitled to some elements of privacy, and up till now, this secret deal, so-called, or this large amount of payment that William received was private. So has this been revealed with his permission or no? As I say, if it has, then I will retract my criticism. Was it all done with Granny's approval? Well, have to do a Ouija board to find that out, won't we? In fact, knowing YouTube, somebody's probably already doing that, aren't they? On a tarot channel or something. Anyway, but on the other side of the coin, the royal coin, where William's head will appear one day as our monarch, not Henry IX? No. And can you imagine that head in profile on an effigy, on a coin? No, thank you very much. But yes, on the other side of the coin, and on the other side of the lollipop, and on the other side of the pond, the Prince of Wales made an appearance at dawn, at the break of dawn, to pay tribute to fallen troops for Anzac Day at the Wellington Arch in Hyde Park, remembering Australian and New Zealand soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice, lest we forget. National anthems were sung, a wreath was laid, and later in the afternoon the Duke of Gloucester laid another wreath at the cenotaph, followed by a service at Westminster Abbey in commemoration and thanksgiving. Truly royal service. And I'm afraid that all of Henry's behaviour over the last few years illustrates to us how useless he would be as a monarch. Even if he thinks, and even if he insinuates in his tone, which he does, that Meghan could do everything better than members of the royal family, and implies that Harry is basically better suited to being king than William. You know, William and Catherine are dreadful, don't really do a great job. No, but this is because, you see, he has a misunderstanding of royalty, and you'd think he'd know. You'd think he'd know, being the late Queen's grandson. But William and Catherine, and even William and Catherine, are in danger of being pushed into this if they don't keep their wits about them. And even Charles, yes, I will admit they're in danger of doing it. They're not there yet, but they might start approaching the line and make it too uncomfortable. So we've got to keep an eye on them and watch who they're surrounding themselves with, as Harry would say. But the royal family are not supposed to be activists. They are supposed to be royalty. Harry would make a great activist. He's the kind of character that if he wasn't a prince himself, you wouldn't really put him past it anyway, he's the kind that might turn up at a coronation holding one of those neon signs that they're all going to assemble together and gather together and cause mayhem and be an anarchist and make a political point, which I feel they have the right to do, but I think it's very ungracious to impose these potential protests on members of the public who adore the royal family on that special day. However, Harry would be that kind, wouldn't he? In fact, that might be why he's flying over for the coronation, to join them and hold up a neon sign. I really wouldn't put it past him. But anyway, that's his kind of character, my dear. So he is not a diplomat. He is not a diplomat. He hasn't got it in him. And recently I've been praising voices, and particularly voices of colour, that are not speaking in defence of Catherine and William and the King and the Queen, but merely lending a voice of support and enthusiasm. Recently I spoke about Alison Hammond, who just makes the odd comment, but it's nice to see. And another one who I feel we should be praising right now is Edward Enninful of Vogue. And Edward Enninful has shown us gracefully the nuance, because despite what many perceive as his woke leanings, he does have respect and admiration for monarchy, and especially the king. And he speaks of it, and that is what I really respect, because his audience, he is subject to an audience that hold him to a certain standard and a certain ideal that they believe in. Or should I say, maybe the louder minority who gabble away on the Twitter sphere, and the silent majority might not be quite so vociferous against royalty and this kind of thing. But he's been linked as having a friendly relationship with Meghan, but actually that was rather fleeting. And a lot of his friendships are with the King and with the Queen. He adores both of them, gets on with them very, very well. And he is also ambassador for the Prince's Trust, and he knows deeply and intimately the good work that the King's done. And he wrote a profile of the King for Time magazine and their 100 most influential. And he said that Charles is charming, funny and kind, who anybody that knows and has met him has said, by the way. He praised the Trust, explaining that it helped people that he knew find work when he was growing up on a council estate in West London. And let it be said that this sort of good work that the King has done wasn't mentioned once in Spare. And I realise it's not a biography of Charles's life, but you'd think that throughout that chunky tome, Henry could have made some sort of mention about the good things that his father has done, because, as we all know, those good things are numerous and really worthwhile, and the Prince's Trust as just one of the glittering jewels in that crown, which has made a real difference to the lives of millions. And he shared the profile of this monarch for a new age to his social media, and it was met with fury. It was met with fury. What's all this? Have you been hijacked? Blink if you're okay, Edward. What do these people really think? The signs have been there for a very long time. Yes, Edward Enninful loves royalty. Naomi Campbell, who's closely associated with him and with Vogue, love royalty. She is also an ambassador, isn't she, for the Commonwealth? And many, many beautiful black voices, brown voices, just like white folks' voices, get suppressed and get cut down, and the story can't be told because it isn't fitting in with the fashionable agenda. But there was a time when people with different views and different standpoints were able to rub along together and brush shoulders quite peaceably and respectfully without having some huge hissy fit and tantrum and cancelling others. And good for Edward Enninful for sticking by it, not removing the profile from his social media, and even letting other people have their say, whatever it is, my dear. And I believe giving credit where credit's due. So if you wish to go to his profile and show your appreciation for his words, then I would advise you to do so. And I thought this was rather sweet because there were some images shared by the royal family via the Royal Collection Trust of a letter that some of you might have seen before. I think it was written in 1937 by the late Elizabeth when she was 11 years old, to Mummy and Papa in memory of their coronation from Lilibet by herself. And it speaks of one of her diary entries when she was awakened at 5 a.m. by the music of the Royal Marines outside her window, and she took an early breakfast and was dressed in a gown of silk and cream lace with little gold bows all the way down the middle, puffed sleeves with one little bow in the centre, she says. And she says that her father looked very beautiful in a crimson robe and the cap of state. I thought it was all very wonderful, and I expect the Abbey did too. The arches and beams at the top were covered with a sort of haze of wonder as Papa was crowned. At least I thought so. But then she complains that the coronation service was inordinately long. Well, you can see why. One of the reasons why Charles wanted a shorter service, so we will be spared those long pains of a ceremony, because she says at the end of the service it got rather boring as it was all prayers. She and Queen Mary, her grandmother Queen Mary, had a nice little delicious moment where they smiled together at each other in relief when they flipped over their programme of service and saw that it was finishing and said finis. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, my dears. I appreciate it. Please leave me a juicy one and let me know what you're up to, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. And if you'd like to treat me to a fondant fancy, because I'm rather dressed like one today, aren't I, my dear? If you'd like to treat me to one, my tip jar, Privy Purse, is in the description box below, and I thank you most sincerely, I truly do. Take care, my dears, and see you very soon. Toodle pip.